There we go. I always have to wait until it says recording in progress. So that's why there's a little delay always. Hey guys, I'm so glad you're here. It's almost Valentine's Day. I'm super, super excited. Today is a fun class because, well, all the classes are super fun, I think, but it's super fun because I'm going to be teaching you how to make pom-poms, little yarn pom-poms, which are super fun. Look at that. They're little like monsters. I've turned the pom-pom into a little Valentine monster. I used heart feet and little heart antennae. So this is what we are making, but you will see that learning how to make pom-poms is going to be a very cool life skill. So you'll hopefully be able to use it in other points of your life. I'm going to switch my camera. There we go. Okay, so I did not just finish eating dinner, guys. We are going to be using forks for our pom-pom making. If you did not purchase the pom-pom making kit set. So if you would let us know if you do have the kit, that way I know, if all of you are here and nobody has the kit, then I'll just show how to use the fork, unless we have some friends, and this is really cool. I would love to show you how to make pom-poms with this, but we could do that at the end too. So let us know. Also, while I go over the supplies, let us know how old you are and where you are joining us from. And if you'd like to share your name, we love to give shout outs. So you can do that as well. So you've got an assignment, 3 things. Let us know if you have the pom-pom maker set. And if you don't, just let us know, will you be using a fork or the pom-pom maker set? Okay. So you could just say fork or set, and then let us know your name and where you're from and your age. Ooh, that's 4. Nicole, that's 4. Okay. Cause I always like to know that. Okay. So we want to see what you made. All right. So would your adult find us at Learn with Michaels on Instagram? And this is me at La Cozy Casita. I cannot see your smiling faces. And so I would love to see your final project on Instagram if your adult says it's okay. You could also hashtag Make It with Michaels and hashtag kids classes, and we could see them there as well. So that is how to get in touch with us. And let's go over our supplies. I'm going to zoom out just a teensy bit so that you can see my whole tray. We don't need paints today. Let me move that out of the way. Okay. Let me show you. So we like to use our craft case here. So if you have your craft case, the things that you're going to need your glue. You're going to need one of the pipe cleaners, 1 or 2, just have that handy. You're going to need your scissors, and which I already pulled out, and you'll need your Google eyes. Okay. So I told you last class that I bought a new case because I'm just now starting to get to where I'm using a lot of my supplies. So I've had that for a very long time. Okay. So I have already pulled out my scissors from my case. I do want to mention that when we get to cutting our pom-poms, our yarn, you may need to have an adult help you with the cutting, and they may need to use sharper scissors. Okay. These will work. The sharper scissors just make it a little faster. So you might see me, for the sake of time, using sharper scissors. Okay. But that's something that your adult can help you with. So we've got our scissors. I am using my glue. It's the same glue I just showed you. It's just in a bigger bottle. I've already picked out the antenna I want to use, or the pipe cleaner for the antennas. And so I'll show you right here on our little guy. See his little antennae? So that is what I use there. And wiggle eyes. We use a lot of wiggle eyes in this class. So I have a bag of them. Other classes, we've just gone for the big box because we use those big ol' eyeballs. I think we used the big eyeballs on our Valentine box that we made 2 weeks ago. So if you have that, if you've taken a class from me before, you will probably have that in your supplies. And then foam hearts. I've got pinks and purples. There's so many options you can find at Michael's. And so this is what I've got today. This is what is going to be on the top of the antennae and for the feet. Okay. And last but not least, yarn. So I've got the Creatology yarn here, but you can certainly use any type of yarn that you have at home. So I thought it would be fun to try this thick, big yarn just to see. I kind of want to see how it turns out. This kind of yarn makes this kind of pom-pom, which is super fun. And then the Creatology yarn is real fuzzy, like your typical yarn that you know and love. Okay, so are we ready to get started? And let's go ahead. Oh, and the forks, of course. Forks.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
we do actually have some folks who've sent in to the Q&A. We
Okay.
do have someone who has the kit.
Yay.
So,
Oh, good.
And
Good.
then we also have a whole bunch of folks joining us. We have Dallas, Layla, who's 9, Gianna, who's 10, and Jackson, who's 12. They do not have a set, but they are using plastic forks.
Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I will show both ways. And as Nicole said, this is going to be posted on YouTube. So you can, if you decide you really love making pom-poms and you want to make more, this kit is going to really help you in that way. And so you may want to purchase the kit later, or you may want to say, hey, that'd be a cool Valentine's Day gift. And you could have it in your Valentine bag or give it to somebody. So anyway, you can gift it to yourself. So I will start with the forks and then we'll go to the pom-pom maker. Okay. And then I'm just going to adjust my, oopsies, my light here because I can see I've got a shadow. Make it a little better. There we go. Okay. Guys, ready? Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Okay. I think I might even be able to keep this one. I don't know if that'll be a distraction or not. Okay. We're going to start with forks. So I'm going to use, just for the sake of you being able to see, I'm going to use the big giant fork. I don't have little hands, actually. This is just a big giant fork. And so I don't have tiny hands. This is for the turkey, right? Or when you get the meat. Okay, so we are going to grab our yarn. So whichever color you like, I am going to go for this. Let's go for the purple, just so you can see it a little better in the video. Okay, you are going to first grab a piece. Oh, let's see, let me measure this. You don't have to measure this, but inevitably somebody will want to know how long it is. And that's totally fine. 8 inches. I'm going to go 8 inches. Okay. So I'm just going to cut off a little piece here. You know, it could be as long as your fork if you wanted it to be. Okay. All right. So now what we do, we are going to take this piece of yarn and we're going to put it in between the fork here. Just like this. See, one part has fallen in front of the fork and one part is behind the fork. And you're going to hold on to it. I'm holding it onto it with my left hand because I'm a righty. And so I'm going to be twisting the yarn around the fork with my right hand. And I'm holding the yarn and the fork together with my left hand. You see? You can do any way you prefer. That's the way I'm doing. Okay? So we hold on to it. And now I'm putting, it's a little shiny, isn't it? Let me try to get it out of the light here, or I'll zoom in. That'll be better and take some of that glare away, I think. There we go. So now I'm going to be wrapping the yarn around this fork. So I'm holding on with my thumb. This is just probably going to be the trickiest part of the whole thing. Hold on to this part. Wrap it around a few times so that you're grabbing that little loose end. Just start wrapping. And then start making your way up the fork. Just like this. Now, if this yarn if you don't like it flopping around like that, you could just unroll it, but just be careful not to get it in a knot, your yarn in a knot. So that's kind of why I'm keeping mine here. Okay, let me pull up a little now. There we go. I'm just going to keep wrapping. That's all I'm doing. I'm wrapping around the fork. You don't want to go way, way, way up high on your fork, but you can make your way up. I don't have a ton of yarn on here. So my first pom-pom is going to be a little bit smaller, or I can continue to use another color, and that is cool too. So let me show you what just happened here. The yarn went in between the tines of the fork. Do you see that? And I'm just going to pull that out. I don't want that to happen. I'm just wrapping around the fork, not in between the tines here. Just like this. Just keep wrapping. And unrolling my fork down for a minute. Unroll a little more. So because you're using a small fork, your pom-pom is going to be a little chunkier than mine. I kind of like the idea of using two colors, so I might tack on a second color. Make sure you still have your two pieces down here and that you don't wrap it up. If you did wrap it up on accident, just unravel a little bit until you can get it back down. Okay, so just make sure you're holding on to those two pieces there. I'm going to adjust my camera that way because I keep moving out of the frame on accident. Okay, keep on wrapping. This is a pretty easy craft. Okay, I'm going to stop here. It's just kind of stuck underneath. There we go. Pull it out. Keep going. Okay. So that's the end. This is the size of pom-pom that I got. I want to keep going though. So I'm going to grab another color. In the supply list, we said 2 of these if you chose to use the Creatology. If you did not, you can stay with 1 color. You can add another. It's up to you. I somehow got mine. Where's the end here? I must have rewrapped. Let's get this guy out of the way. Where is my end? If this happens, you can always trim it if you like. But my end is hiding. There, is this it? This pink is so pretty too. Okay, don't forget to let us know for shout outs. Okay, I'm sure you're still wrapping. Here's my end. Let us know where you are tuning in from in the Q&A. And let us know how old you are, if you have the pom-pom maker, if you have the fork. Okay, I'm going to leave this guy. I'm going to leave that for now. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to finish this pom-pom off. So this is going to be a smaller, more sparse pom-pom. So the thicker you make it, the heftier your pom-pom will be. So this is a lighter pom-pom. See how it's a little like, we'll just say he's a little bald. Okay. But if you use more, then they get a little puffier, a little poofier. And if you use more yarn, well, this is using a bigger fork, or I think I use this guy. You get a bigger pom-pom. Does that make sense? So if you're using a smaller, if you're using a plastic fork, and you'll probably get about the same size pom-pom, but if you keep wrapping it, he's going to be poofier. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and end this. So we're going to take these two sides here. So if you're still going, go for it, guys. But I've got my one side here. You're still wrapping, go for it. And my other side here. So what I'm going to do, I'm bringing my back end to the front. And I'm just bringing this together like I'm tying a bow or my shoes. So if you're a shoe tire, this is what you do. Tie it nice and tight. And then go one more time. Nice and tight. Just like you're tying your shoes, friends. So once and twice. Okay. There we go. So it looks like a little bow, doesn't it? Now, like I said, this is going to be a little looser because I didn't go as high. I didn't use as much yarn on this one. And this class, we're going to have plenty of time to make different sizes and different yarns, but I want to show you the gist of how to do it in the beginning. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take it off the fork. So I just slid it right off the fork. This is what it looks like. You can hold it by these pieces. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to snip. Let me zoom in so you can see. Do you see where those loops are? That's where you're going to snip. Okay. Let me put this back in the frame so you can see what we're doing. So put your scissors in the loops here, and I'm snipping this whole side here. Just like this. Now it's best to use this part of your scissors. Those are the sharpest. That's the sharpest side. There we go. Look, that went pretty well. Okay, now I'm going to go on this side. Got my little ends down here so I don't accidentally snip it. I don't want to snip this on accident because then I'll have all my pieces everywhere. That's what's keeping everything together. So just kind of be mindful, see where that is, get it out of the way. See the loop here? Let me bring it up. Do you see those little loops? That's where, see it right there. That's where you're going to put your scissors. Right in that little space there. Let me move him out of the way so that it doesn't catch. There we go. See that? And you're cutting. Just get your scissors in there and just work at it. You might have to go a couple times with your scissors. Make sure you don't cut that middle piece now. And if you do, don't worry, start over again. Got plenty of yarn. Now you just kind of push it together. Give them a little comb, brush them a little, poof them up. Okay, you can give him a haircut. So see how it's a little longer here? I'm going to give him a haircut. A little trimmy trim. Bring him over here. So you can now trim off these pieces. I like holding on to them for a little bit. Oh, look, here's some loops that I didn't get cut. I'm going to cut the loops. There we go. And I have a long piece over here I'm going to trim. And you'll see as you trim it, it kind of gets a little poofier. And you can see if there's any loops that you missed. So it's shaping up pretty well. Here's some longer pieces. Okay, so you remember I said he was going to be a little more bald because I didn't use as much yarn. So if you're using more yarn, you're going to get a puffier or poofier pom-pom. There we go. Isn't that cute? Okay, so now I'm going to clean up my little space here. There he is. Now, if you like him a little jagged, it can be a little jagged. If you like it, if you want his hair to be all just the same, you can work on giving him a trim. But I want to show you one first, and then we'll just start making together, okay? That way we don't have to hold each other back. You don't have to be held back if you want to go and spread your little wings. So now we're going to get his little feet. And let me get a bigger. Let me see. Is that the biggest? Maybe that is the biggest. Okay. So if the pom-pom covers his feet totally, or the heart, all you have to do is bring the heart back. Now, peekaboo, you see his little feet? Isn't that cute? So if it's covering, just pull it back a little. Peekaboo. Before I add that, I need to give him his little antennae. Where? Here they are. Here's my pipe cleaner. I'm going to fold my pipe cleaner in half and just cut it in half. Just like that with my scissors. Now, there's two ways that you can attach your pipe cleaner. You can wrap the pipe cleaner around his body like this, if you want. Just like that. Or, and you can do it any way. Like if you want it to go the opposite way of where his strings are, that's probably even better. So just give him a little tie, wrap it, and then poof him back up. Whoops, sorry. Just like that. So I'll show you one more time on that, okay? So you've got your pom-pom, and you'll see that you'll just poof up his little fur if it gets matted down a little bit. So you have your pipe cleaner, set your pom-pom on top, bring the pipe cleaner up, and just crisscross like an X, just like this, and then give it another turn like that. See? Now give him his little hair. You didn't know you were a hairstylist today, did you? Okay, there we go. Now you're going to put the tiny little hearts on the ends. So I'm grabbing my hearts. Let me pull back a little. You can see I'm making the little hearts here. So let me pull out some purples. Let's see. Let's do purple. You can do whatever color you want. Now, if you don't have this, you can most certainly cut out little hearts from paper, construction paper. That would work. Do we want to do purple or do we want to do pink? Kind of like how the pink matches his feet. That's kind of fun. I'll grab the purple for my next one and the pink for this one. How's that sound? What color are you making your pom-poms? Would you let us know in the Q&A? What color is your little monster? Okay, so I need 4 little pink hearts. Let me put the rest away for now. And these are adhesive. So what I'm going to do is sandwich the pipe cleaner in between, and they'll stick to each other. So I'm pulling off the paper from one of the hearts, pulling off the paper from the second heart, and now I make a little pipe cleaner sandwich. So put the pipe cleaner on like this, just like that. And then the other pipe cleaner on. There we go. And now grab another. This would be a fun project to do at school, I think. Do it again. If you need some Valentine party ideas. Are you guys having a Valentine party or Valentine exchange? So you're just matching those up, just like a little puzzle. There we go. See, now we got to give them a face. And we'll put the feet on very last because that is going to take some glue. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So I told you there were 2 ways to attach your antenna. I think this is the best way because it's not going to fall. This one, I'm going to pull it out, okay? So you can see. I just put in some glue. I put the pipe cleaner in, so I trimmed it. So I just kind of gave him a little trim, like about this big. So that's about 1.5 inches. Gave it a little trim. And then what I did is I put a dollop of glue inside the pom-pom. I put the antenna there, and then I squeezed them together. Squeezed his little fur together. So that's another way that you could do it if you wanted to, if you didn't have a bunch of pipe cleaners that you could wrap. If you just had one pipe cleaner, that's what I would do. Okay. But this one just kind of, it's a little more sturdy. All right, let's add some eyes, shall we? I think I'm going to go for the big eyes just because I think the big eyes are fun. You can use any eyes that you like. These are fun. I love this little box of eyeballs. So, I mean, why not give some lashes? Let's do some lashes.
Elizabeth, I have a few more shout outs.
Ooh, let's hear it.
All right, so we have some folks chiming in who have the kit. I believe they mean the
Yes.
Creatology kit.
Okay.
We have Isabella, who's 10, Juliet, who's 9, and they are from Northern Michigan.
Welcome.
And then we have another friend who said that they are using rainbow colored yarn and red yarn to make their friend.
Pretty. I want to use my rainbow colored yarn. I want to see what it's going to turn into because I've only done solid colors right now. Do you like that rainbow color? I bet it's cool. Okay, I'm picking off the adhesive. And this is the eyeball I chose. Cute. Okay, let's get the other one. So my nails don't allow me to pick off the sticker. So that's why I'm using this little tool here. But I bet your nails work beautifully. All of these stickers are adhesive, I believe. But if not, that's where you're going to use the glue. And you'll just put a dollop of glue and then just gently place the eyeball on the glue. Let's turn this. Isn't she pretty? Okay, now we're going to put her on But so this is adhesive on this side. Let me see. Yes, it's pink on that side. So I'm going to lift up the sticker part, and then I'm just going to stick her down just like this. Push it. There we go. There, she's done. So you could also use foam. I think I had foam on there, foam hearts. You could use adhesive felt hearts. Whatever you choose, whatever you have. You could use paper. Aren't those cute? She's a little flat from when I pushed her down. Here, let's puff you up a little, sister. There we go. All right, you want to try using the big pom-pom maker? Let's try it. So if you know how to use the fork now, remember, we started with that one piece. We put the one piece on the fork like this in the middle. We held onto it. And then we just took the other end and we just wrapped. Remember? We made a big pile. And then we took this yarn, we tied around the fork like we were tying our shoes a little bit. Then we pulled it off the fork and we snipped. And then we gave her a haircut. Remember? Okay, so you do that if you do not have the pom-pom maker. And so if you have the pom-pom maker, now's the time to pull it out. I'm going to do this giant one because I think it'll be fun. And let me this way. There we go. Get a better view. I'm using this thick yarn. I got this at Michael's. It's really pretty. You can use whatever you have, whatever yarn, whichever color you prefer. Okay, so this is how we use this guy. Let me look on the back, make sure I'm doing it all right. Okay, so you're going to take, see, it just opens this little, it's kind of like a little door here. See that? Bet you didn't know that was going to happen. So open this guy, keep these together. Now, we're going to wrap around, it's like a rainbow. So I'm just going to call it a rainbow, okay? Freaking upside down rainbow here, or a letter U. So just like we started out with the fork, I'm holding on to the end so it doesn't slip. And then I'm wrapping around this rainbow. Now, the one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is make sure not to get the yarn here. You're only wrapping on the rainbow. So wrap, wrap, wrap. Now, when you get to this higher part, just be careful not to get, see how easily you can get it on the wrap on the top there? Just bring it back down. Kind of go a little slower when you get to the end here, and then wrap back this way. So you're essentially just going back and forth until you get a nice puffy wrap. Okay. There we go. I'm going to go again because I like them to be poofy. I like using a lot of yarn. So with this thick yarn, I'm going around 3 times. But with the thinner yarn, you could probably go back and forth 4 times. Okay. So I think this is a good stopping point. Yes. The reason I know is because it's getting pretty high right here. So I'm going to trim. Got a little bit of a tail. It's fine. And I'm just going to close the hatch. Now I'm going to open the other side of the rainbow. And I'm going to do the same thing. Hold on and make sure that these are in line. You don't want to wrap when they're like this. Make sure they're closed. Hold on with your thumb and wrap, wrap, wrap. Just like this. Just keep wrapping around. So have you all bought your Valentine cards yet? And have you started labeling them? That was always a big job, I thought. I was a kindergarten teacher for 14 years. And now I teach kindergartners and first graders, and I have one group of fifth graders, but I teach them English, to speak English. I'm an ESL teacher. So we're not doing a Valentine party, which kind of makes me sad because it's my favorite holiday aside from Christmas. Now, another thing, you could have not trimmed it and just brought it straight across. That would work too. Let's just keep going. So this is going to give me, I didn't get much pink or purple in this one, which is fine. And it'll really look like a Monsters, Inc. monster. All right, so we're good here. All right, so bring it in. Now, trim. Now you're going to get another piece. So it's kind of backwards. It's different than how we started with the fork because we use this string at the very beginning. So now this one we're going to trim. Look, I could have kept going right there too, even. Okay, so I told you I was going to grab my sharper scissors. But you can see, I could try. Yeah. Because on this apparatus, you can't really get to that sharp part of your scissors. You really have to use the tip, and these aren't quite sharp enough because they're safety scissors. So that's when I said have an adult help you with the cutting. So I'm going to get my sharper scissors. And you can see that there's a groove here. And that's where I'm putting my scissors. And I'm trimming all the way around here. And if it doesn't cut the first time, just give it another little snip, snip. And then look, it kind of looks, oh, so cute. Okay, now this side. Ooh, that was a beautiful cut. Look at that. Isn't that cool? You can see the purple underneath. Oh, I love that. It's like, oh, it's like a little surprise in there. Cute. Okay. Oh, there's one piece here and one here. Did I get them everywhere? I think I did. Okay. So now we're going to use this piece here. And we are going to just put it right in that groove. Bring it up. And we're tying just like we did on the fork. Remember? It's the same kind of strategy. Tie and pull, 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 all the way to get to the middle. Pull without popping your yarn. Now I'm going to do it a second time, just like you tie your shoes in the very first step. Pull again, pull, pull. And might as well just go one more shot since we've got the yarn. Might as well. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I bet you're wondering, how do we get in here? So you're going to release this blue or the colored part. Let's see. How do we get this? Oh, I'm sorry, not the blue, the white. Lift it. Lift it. Now we're going to lift the other side. then the other side. There we go. Now, pull the blue. Pull each side. Ta-da! Isn't this cute? Look at how perfect that is. I love it. Okay. Oh, it's so cute. I have not made one with this thicker, fuzzier yarn. It's so cute. Look, you guys. Okay, my friend who did the rainbow. Why didn't I make a rainbow yarn before? This is so cute. Okay, so we need to give him a haircut. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty satisfied with most of them, but we've got a couple little loose ends here. So time for a little trimmy trim. Right here. Isn't it cute? Okay, here's another one. All right. For the third little guy, you guys decide. Do we make one using the pom-pom makers, or do we use the fork again? You put in your vote. Put in maker or fork. And while I'm trimming him, cute. Oh my gosh, I love this. It makes me want to go get all the thick yarn and make the cutest pom-poms. That is the best one yet. So look, I made one yesterday or 2 days ago with this other type of yarn. So it's just a different material. And he just falls differently. I like this fuzzy guy. He's so cute. Okay, let's give him some feet, shall we? Let's do, I wonder if I think I'm going to give him two feet, 2 hearts. Yes, that's how I'm going to make him. And then I'm going to do the little antennae again. So let me grab another pipe cleaner, because since he's bigger, I need a bigger pipe cleaner, don't I? Let's see what color. Let's do pink, since there wasn't a lot of pink. And you know, at Valentine's Day, we use a lot of pinks and purples, and even the conversation hearts have some green. All right, so let's put this on the bottom. And then remember, I'm going to bring it up and together. Oops, I got excited with my little puffy yarn pom-pom here. Oh my goodness, it's so fun. I love it. Okay.
Elizabeth, we have 1 vote for the maker so far.
1 vote for the maker. Okay, hey, I'm down with that because I liked making that. That was really fun. Okay, thank you for voting. Okay, so I saved those little purple antennae or hearts. So we're gonna go 1 and 2. And then remember, we make a sandwich. So cute. Let's do 1 end first, then the second. Beauties. And now let's do this one. Okay. Peel that off. Whoopsies. It's got stuck to my nail. There we go. It's easier if you put on one side and then the second instead of just sandwiching them together, because it kind of holds it in place for you. Cute. Okay, let's do the eyes. I'm going big. I'm in a big-eyed mood today. Wide eyes. Let's do these. Yes. What do you think, guys? These are so cute. I usually
Elizabeth?
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So one of our friends has chimed in with another comment. When using the fork, trying to tie at the end wasn't as successful after pulling it off of the fork. Also, I think the kids wrapped it too tight. We will be heading to Michael's to get the maker after this. It seems much easier.
It is easier to make it with the pom-pom, or I'm sorry, with the makers, but just make sure when you're tying that yarn that you got it really nice and tight. And, maybe, I'm not sure which fork you were using. Were you using a plastic fork or a metal fork? I don't know if that would make a difference either, or I would be curious to know. And it could have been like the tightness. I did mine pretty tight on my metal fork though. So I'm
They
curious.
were using plastic.
Plastic. So I wonder if plastic has to do with it. I wonder if they might have a little more success with a metal fork. Not sure. Cute, you guys. Look. So cute. Okay. I cannot stand it. Okay, now let's put on, look, I like the shimmery feet, but I'm afraid my glue won't stick on the shimmery feet, but I wish I could use it. Okay, I'll use this side and just his underside will be shimmery. One, there you go, little fella. Go to your heart. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at this. So one is pink and one, hey, we're going with it. One pink and one purple foot. Cuties. Look, guys. You like him? Okay, so there we go. We're gonna make another one. Okay. That is really fun. So I'm curious about that fork. I have made mine. They come out fairly successfully. I haven't had any except, let's see, was it this one? He was just a little looser. He was just a little more loose because I didn't come as high. So I'm curious about what.
Elizabeth,
Mhm.
another friend has also said that they did not have as much success with the plastic fork,
Hmm.
but and we didn't tie it tight enough is what they said,
Okay.
and it fell apart.
Oh,
But they said their maker one is perfect. So
okay, good. So I wonder if it is it's got to be the plastic fork. Hmm. Or again, not tying it quite tight enough, but try again. Don't give up. Try again. Okay. So let's go for should we do the mini, the little baby? I've never made the baby one yet. Should we try it? And I really love this pink yarn, but it's giving me the hardest time. Let's see. Don't give up easily, guys. But I might have to, even though he's so pretty. I just love this bright, bright pink. How are we doing? We've got 10 minutes. Okay. I might have to heed to the hot pink. We'll see. I don't want to regret it. It sure is pretty. Such a beautiful pink. I'm scared. Okay, I'm going to use light pink, guys. I don't want it to knot up on us. All right, let me find the end here. Here it is. Let's go for it. Little baby mini. So we're taking out the little arms. This is so cute. I want to see how it turns out. So let's see. How do we do this here? This is upside down. Because they have to open the same way. There we go. So those open that way. These open this way. Okay, now we got it. All right, so we're gonna wrap teeny tiny. There's something about mini stuff that is just so cute. Let's see how well this little tiny one will come out. Okay, should I zoom in? Let me zoom in. And I'm gonna put my puffball in the background because he's so cute. All right, so let's wrap. Remember to watch out to wrap here. So avoid those. Keep wrapping. Oops. And you don't want to go in between either. in between these two here. So we're going to wrap. Make sure they're nice and even. I can tell already right off the bat that making the big one is easier. Nicole, let me know if I'm out of frame because I'm kind of concentrating on this little
You're
guy.
a little bit, but only occasionally.
Okay, let me move it. If I keep pulling towards me, there we go. Keep going. Ooh, it'd be cute to do one side one color and one side the other color. I was living for that multicolored one though. That was so cool. It was like a little surprise as you cut it. It's like a little tiny caterpillar on here. So cute. I love it. Okay. So like I said, the more yarn you get, the puffier your pom-pom's going to be. I'm so curious about the plastic fork, so I want to try it later and see, because that will be a good comment, something good to write. It's like, use only a metal fork. Okay, I think this is as far as I'm going to be able to get. Oh, look at there. See what I did there? Snuck up on me, so let me push them back. Okay, so it worked fine to trim it. So I'm going to trim it, close the hatch. Yeah, if you go too far, you won't be able to close your hatch. So make sure you don't wrap too far. Let's do, you guys, I wish I wasn't so stubborn, but I really love that hot pink. Okay, so what I'm going to do, it's just so bright and vibrant. Be nice to me, hot pink, because I really want to use you. Let's see. Get this. Just trying to find the other end. There we go. All right. Wrap, because it's so pretty. Isn't that a beautiful pink? I love this color. Okay, so wrap, wrap, wrap. Obviously, it takes less time with the smaller. So in the comments or in the supply guide, I think it has the 2-pack. I bought the 4-pack of pom-poms because I just wanted to try all the sizes. So this is what I got. It's the Clover. Let me pull back a little bit. And when I was at Michael's, I think they just had the single and the 4-pack, or it could have been 2 in the 4-pack, but I went for all 4 because, like I said, I just wanted to try all the sizes. Oop, there we go. See, those will sneak up on you. I also want to mention, I have not noticed a huge difference between like being very careful about lining your yarn up just perfectly and just kind of going willy-nilly. I have not noticed a difference. So kind of try to stay like go from one side to the other, but I wouldn't go like all crazy, but it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned either. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. All right, look. All right, are you curious? I'm curious about these 2 colors. Okay, so now is where we go in and trim. Sorry, little guy. Back. Go in and trim. Let's see here. Ooh, it's harder to trim. I might have to get my really sharp scissors. So that was something that we observed. For the smaller ones, it's harder to trim. Okay. Now, cute. I already love it. Okay, now we're going to get our little piece. See, this was where it was problematic for me, and now it's fine. Trim this off. And we go in this little crease here. I'm going to go the other way just because it's a different color and I want you to see the contrast here. There we go. And that pink is so cute too, isn't it? The Creatology pink. It's like a little bubblegum pink. Okay, now all the way down. And I'm not going to go 3 knots. I'm just going to make one. So 1 and then 2. I'm not going to go 3 because I just don't want it to be too bulky. And I thought since this one had bigger yarn, thicker yarn, I just wanted to do that. Okay, so now we have to open, flip it around, open, and now we pull it apart. So cute. Okay. So now we get to snip. Look, isn't that cute? Okay, now we give them a haircut. Make sure everything is even. Cute. Oop. Isn't that adorable? So if you wanted to like hang this, you could just leave these the strings together and then you can hang it somewhere if you wanted. Or put it on your backpack. Isn't that cute? Ooh, I really like that. So it's a 2-colored pom-pom. Cutie. I love it. Okay, so we made this guy. We made the little mini, which it's not even that mini, is it? It's about the size of the fork one. So can you, oopsies, sorry about that. Can you see the difference between using the maker and using the fork? So this one's a little squishier. And again, you could just keep wrapping and it could give you one like this. I've also heard of people using their fingers. You could use your fingers. So there's lots of ways to make pom-poms. There's lots of different strategies that people have. My favorite is the pom-pom maker. So if you have any questions, you can contact me at La Cozy Casita on Instagram. I'm Elizabeth Barrick on TikTok. You can find me there as well. Those are the 2 platforms that I'm on mostly. And let's see here. Now I've got quite the mess that I've started. I did not clean up as I went. I'm going to go ahead and flip my camera around. Let's see. There we go. Okay, did you guys have fun? All right, hopefully, let me show you the size of this guy. Isn't that cute? And this is little mini. Look, it matches my vest. That fun? Okay, I want to see y'all's. So share with me if you would. I really want to see it. Next week, I'm going to be making those little, I like to call them pinch pots. They are little clay, little pots. You can put earrings in them, rings. You can just use them as decoration. There's a heart and there's just a little circle with a heart in it. We are making those next week. So find it on the app. You can sign up there. What else do we have? I have several classes on the app right now. I think about 6 classes. So hopefully we'll make it to any of those. And I hope you had a good time tonight. I know I did. I always do. And we will catch you at the next class. Thanks, guys. Bye.